Imagine it is 1989, and the concept of, organic food is definitely not the multi-billion-dollar global industry that it is today.
Right, it was barely a blip.
Exactly. It's essentially this fringe movement, mostly relegated to small co-ops and niche health stores.
Yeah, you really had to go looking for it back then.
You did. So now imagine walking into a bank, taking the deed to your personal condo, literally the actual roof over your head, and betting it all to start a business supplying those organic natural ingredients.
Wow. I mean, that isn't a calculated corporate strategy at all.
No, that is financial Russian roulette.
It really is. It requires a level of conviction that honestly borders on irrationality. Today, we just expect startups to have venture capital backing, right?
Yeah.
And this engineered a totally predictable path to scale.
Yeah, everything is so mapped out now.
Exactly. But the pioneers who built the foundations of the natural ingredients industry, they did not have a modern playbook. They really had to rely on raw instincts, extreme chaos tolerance, and just an absolute refusal to compromise.
Well, welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is extracting the ultimate playbook for leadership, resilience, and industry foresight from a true pioneer in the natural ingredient space.
And we have some amazing source material for this one.
We really do. We're looking at a highly illuminating broadcast from September 11th, 2025 on the KISC My Health Radio show. And I have to mention, this show is hosted by the universally recognized King of Cranberries, Captain Cranman himself, Stephen Lukawski.
That is quite the title.
Right. He hosts it alongside his co-host, Peter Mingils.
And just for context, KISC stands for Key Influencers Super Champions, though. You will often hear it referred to within the industry as the Keep It Simple Circle.
Exactly. And what makes this specific broadcast so unique is really the ecosystem around it. It airs across Building Fortunes Radio and the Humongous Radio Network.
And you can find it rebroadcast everywhere, right? Like Amazon Music, Apple's iTunes, Spotify, and iHeartRadio.
Yeah, it has massive reach. But it is fundamentally backed by sponsors who actually care deeply about supply chain integrity. You have organizations like Caldic North America, Step Change Innovations, GreenVit, and crucially, RFI Ingredients itself.
Right, all supporting the positive messages of the natural ingredients business.
Which perfectly brings us to the focus of that original broadcast.
Yeah.
The guest is Jeff Wuagneux, the founder, CEO, and president of RFI Ingredients.
And honestly, if you are trying to understand how to build a vertically integrated powerhouse that lasts for decades, his background is just essential.
Okay, let's unpack this because Jeff's origin story defies every expectation you might have for a CEO.
It really does. It's not your standard business school trajectory at all.
Not even close. The interview actually starts with a very solemn 9/11 tribute. Jeff is a native New Yorker, and he has family spread across the FDNY, the NYPD, and the whole first responder community.
Yeah, it instantly grounds the conversation in this deep-seated resilience. You can hear it in his voice.
Totally. He was raised in Staten Island in a large Italian family, and he speaks incredibly fondly of his mother, Carmel, who had just turned 92 at the time of this broadcast.
Which is amazing. And she was a single mother working 7 days a week, right?
Yeah, 7 days a week. So Jeff was essentially raised by a village, his grandmother, his aunts, his uncles, and I think it was 27 first cousins.
27, wow.
Yeah, it was a deeply communal, survival-oriented environment. But then when Jeff is 14, his mother packs up the family and moves them to Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
That's a huge shift from Staten Island.
Massive. And Jeff admits he was a bit of a wild child.
Yeah.
Suddenly, he's the only male head of the family, enjoying the absolute unstructured freedom of the 1970s down in Florida.
I can only imagine.
Oh, yeah. He's doing construction. He's working odd jobs. It is gritty. But by the time he turns 21, he realizes this aimless path just isn't sustainable, and he heads back up to New York.
And this is where the story takes such a weird, fascinating turn. Through personal connections back in the city, he actually meets former New York Mayor John Lindsay.
Wait, the former mayor?
Yeah. Lindsay takes an interest in him, becomes an early mentor, and basically convinces Jeff that his natural charisma belongs in sales. He actually gets Jeff into a highly competitive training program at Merrill Lynch.
Okay, so a former mayor literally hands you a finance career on a silver platter. You are sitting in Merrill Lynch, the premier Wall Street firm. I mean, most people would view that as the ultimate victory.
Oh, absolutely. And Jeff absolutely hates it.
He hates it.
Hates it. He lasts exactly 6 months. The rigid, hyper-formal corporate environment was totally suffocating to someone who grew up as a wild child working construction.
Which leads to my favorite detail on the entire source material. He abandons Wall Street and finds his true calling by randomly circling an ad in the Sunday New York Times classifieds.
The Sunday classifieds, that is so old school.
Right. It was for an import and export salesperson dealing in organic nuts, seeds, and beans. He walks into this warehouse on 26th Street and 11th Avenue in Manhattan.
Which in the early 1980s was an incredibly raw, rough neighborhood. Super rough. He walks into a room of guys on physical telephones, just shouting over each other, selling bulk commodities to early health co-ops like Erewhon and GNC.
And he is hired by a man named Lawrence Zupan, who becomes his next great mentor. I mean, it is a complete 180-degree turn from Merrill Lynch.
A complete 180. He goes from a pristine financial institution to a chaotic trading floor for natural goods. And I want you to think about that from a modern perspective.
It's hard to even compare.
It is. If you look at your own career path today, everything is driven by hyper-targeted, algorithmic LinkedIn job hunts. An algorithm curates your path by only showing you jobs it calculates you are already qualified for.
Yeah, it keeps you in a very safe echo chamber of your existing skills.
Exactly. So my question is, does having your career handed to you by an algorithm rob you of the grit it takes to survive in a warehouse on 26th Street?
That's a great point. When you circle a random classified ad for an industry you know literally nothing about, you are forced to be open to the absolute unknown.
You have to adapt immediately. Right. That early exposure to an unstructured, scrappy environment was the perfect training ground for the natural products industry. He wasn't trained to follow a rigid corporate manual. He was trained to read a room, solve supply chain problems on the fly, and trade physical commodities in real time.
Talk about chaos tolerance.
Yeah.
And he needed every single ounce of it. Because in 1989, Jeff steps out on his own to found RFI Ingredients.
And this brings us back to that condo.
Yes, the condo.
Yeah.
To secure the bank loan to start the company, he puts his personal home up as collateral. And the business doesn't just instantly take off, by the way.
No, it rarely does.
Right. For the first 2 years of running RFI, he is waiting tables on the weekends just to survive and pay his personal bills.
He completely removed any safety net. But his first major breakthrough comes through a partnership with a French gentleman named Jacques Lukawski.
Oh, this is a cool connection.
Yeah, Jeff helps launch this French company's North American operations, which later evolved into the massive botanical company Naturex.
So he's building real momentum. And then, with his right-hand man, Paul Alifer, RFI makes a massive strategic pivot. In the early 90s, long before organic was a buzzword you saw in every grocery store aisle, they go all in on organic ingredients.
They were so far ahead of the curve. Today, organic makes up the vast majority of their business. They saw the horizon before anyone else.
They really did. But here's the thing that trips me up. Through all of this explosive growth, RFI never took a single dime of outside investor capital.
That's true. They organically plowed every dollar of profit back into the business to fund their own expansion.
Okay, I have to push back on this. We always romanticize betting the house. Literally, his condo in this case. But isn't there a danger in refusing outside investor capital? Doesn't it limit your growth? I mean, if you have a working, highly profitable model in the 1990s, taking venture capital money allows you to aggressively buy out your competitors, scale globally, and dominate the space overnight. Why intentionally choke your own growth velocity?
What's fascinating here is that if you take outside capital in the ingredient space, you introduce a fatal pressure, which is the demand for quarterly profit margins.
Okay, how does that play out?
Well, imagine a board of venture capitalists demands a 20% return this quarter. But a bad crop yield makes raw botanicals twice as expensive. What happens?
The board pressures you to cut costs.
Exactly. They pressure you to buy cheaper, lower quality ingredients to maintain the margin. By refusing that influx of cash, Jeff was able to build a vertically integrated company on his own terms.
Vertical integration, so they own the whole process.
Yes. RFI controls its supply chain, they grow their own raw materials, and they manage their own manufacturing. But keeping outside money out did something far more critical. It allowed him to maintain absolute, total control over the company culture.
Now let's talk about that culture, because it is highly unusual. Since Jeff wasn't answering to private equity, he could build a team entirely his way.
He had a blank slate.
Right, and he instituted a golden rule at RFI, which is, you never get fired for making a mistake. He actively tells his employees that making mistakes is the only actual mechanism for learning.
Which is so rare. Most corporate cultures operate on this underlying unspoken current of fear. Employees hide their errors to protect their jobs.
Yeah, sweeping things under the rug.
Exactly. But by removing the fear of termination for an honest mistake, Jeff encourages rapid problem solving. If a shipment goes wrong, the team doesn't waste time hiding it. They immediately start fixing it.
He also enforces what is essentially a zero-tolerance policy for gossip.
This part is intense.
It is. If two people or even two entire departments have a conflict, they are not allowed to talk behind each other's backs or send passive-aggressive emails.
No Slack channel venting.
None of that. Jeff literally forces the individuals into a room to hash it out face-to-face. It is a raw, confrontational accountability that you almost never see in modern HR handbooks.
It definitely creates friction in the short term, but it prevents the deep systemic resentment that destroys companies over the long term.
For sure.
Jeff also has a very pragmatic hiring philosophy. He believes a leader's job is strictly to know what they do not know, and to hire people who are vastly smarter than them to fill those technical gaps.
And it clearly works, because it breeds a level of loyalty that is almost unheard of today. Throughout the interview, Jeff casually mentions key long-term employees, people like David Aria, P.U. Su, Trish Devine, and Peter Jacobson.
Right, these are the core team members.
Yeah, and these are not people who popped into RFI for an 18-month resume builder. We're talking about tenures of 15, 20, 25, even 30 years.
The result of that culture actually culminates in the most emotional moment of the entire broadcast. Jeff's son, Nick, who is a talented musician but now works at RFI, surprises his dad by calling into the live radio show.
Oh, that was such a great moment.
It really was. And Nick doesn't just congratulate his boss, he explicitly calls Jeff a mentor and a father figure to the entire team.
You just do not get that kind of unsolicited public praise on live radio if your internal culture is toxic.
You really don't.
Listening to how Jeff operates, it feels like his style of leadership is exactly like conducting a symphony. You have all these different people playing completely different instruments, from logistics to biochemistry to sales.
That's a great way to put it.
And the conductor's job is not to walk over to the cellist and micromanage how to hold the bow. The conductor's job is to ensure everyone feels valued, understands the tempo, and plays in sync to create the overall masterpiece.
And if we look at this through the lens of the modern workforce, Jeff offers a masterclass in employee retention. I mean, we hear endless discussions today about quiet quitting and severe employee burnout.
It's everywhere.
It is. But Jeff offers his team a remarkably grounded piece of advice. He tells them, you are never going to love 100% of what you do. There will always be paperwork. There will always be headaches. But if you like 75 to 80% of your job, you have a great job.
That kind of honesty just resets expectations completely. It validates the tedious, difficult parts of work while keeping people focused on the passion that actually drives them forward.
It's so practical.
It is one thing to enforce this strict, no-secrets accountability internally with your own staff. But how does that uncompromising culture survive when RFI turns outward to the industry?
That's where things get tough.
Right. Because Jeff has incredibly high standards for the natural ingredients market, and he doesn't pull his punches when discussing it. Stephen Lukawski refers to their mission as debunking the junk.
And Jeff's expertise as a global supplier really shines when he discusses cross-border business. He offers very stark advice for foreign companies, particularly European ones who are trying to enter the North American market.
Oh yeah, he had strong words about this.
He warns them not to force their European business styles or their native spec sheets onto American buyers.
Okay, I want to push on that for a second. Why would a European spec sheet fail in the US? I mean, if the ingredient is good, shouldn't the data just translate?
You would think so, but the markets have fundamentally different manufacturing mechanics and regulatory expectations.
Like what?
Well, a European botanical extract might have a slightly different moisture tolerance or particle size that works perfectly fine in a European manufacturing facility, but if you ship that exact same powder to an American manufacturer who needs it to run seamlessly through a high-speed 10,000 pill-a-minute encapsulation machine.
Let me guess. The powder clumps.
Exactly. Because of the moisture content, the machine jams. Jeff explicitly says that if foreign companies come to the U.S. with a strict, inflexible list of what they want to sell and refuse to adapt to the physical needs of the American buyer, they will fail.
You have to trust local experts and provide a solution not just a product.
Precisely.
He insists that the way you provide those solutions and the way you build trust hasn't actually changed that much, even in the era of remote work. He argues that personal relationships are still the absolute core of business success.
And he isn't just talking about standard networking. He really emphasizes the relationships built after hours at industry trade shows.
Which makes sense, because authenticity is incredibly difficult to convey over a perfectly curated 30-minute video call. Trust is built in the unstructured moments after the formal pitch is over, when you are simply connecting as human beings.
And trust is the ultimate currency when it comes to quality control. RFI conducts its own rigorous in-house ID testing. Both Jeff and Stephen are fiercely passionate about eliminating foreign contaminants from the supply chain.
Yeah, they are actively fighting to eliminate unnecessary excipients, things like maltodextrin.
Let's explain why maltodextrin is such a critical issue in this industry.
Please do.
Maltodextrin is a highly processed, incredibly cheap carbohydrate powder. If you are an unethical supplier trying to maximize your profit margin, you take your expensive active botanical extract and you dilute it with cheap maltodextrin.
So it bulks up the weight so you can sell more barrels.
Exactly. But for the end consumer, it spikes blood sugar and severely dilutes the actual health benefit of the plant.
That is terrible. So to catch that kind of adulteration, RFI utilizes NMR testing, or nuclear magnetic resonance testing.
It sounds super sci-fi.
It kind of is. Think of NMR like an MRI, but
Yeah.
for plant molecules. Instead of just looking at the color or the basic weight of a powder, NMR uses magnetic fields to look at the exact atomic structure of the ingredient.
So it proves, on a molecular level, whether a cranberry extract is 100% pure or if it has been secretly cut with cheap fillers.
Doing this level of rigorous testing is incredibly expensive, though. But here's where it gets really interesting. Stephen points out a crucial dynamic in the broadcast buyers should never shop price alone.
Yeah, because if an ingredient is suspiciously cheap on the open market, there is a reason for it. It is almost certainly cut with junk.
And why are these rigorous standards so vital right now? Because consumer intelligence is shifting. Today's consumers are highly educated. They are reading labels.
Oh, absolutely. They want to know everything.
They are demanding products that are clean, green, and genuinely pure. Suppliers who cut corners on price, who use those cheap fillers or skip the robust NMR testing, might win a short-term contract.
But they will ultimately lose the entire market to companies like RFI, who invest in vertical integration, fair trade practices, and totally transparent testing.
Which brings up a great point from Jeff. He mentions that the ultimate sales advice he gives his team is that you have to be willing to tell a major customer no.
Saying no sounds like standard business advice, but the stakes here are massive.
Huge.
If a huge brand comes to you and demands a massive volume of ingredients, but their requested price point is so low that it would force you to use cheap fillers, you are walking away from millions of dollars.
Wow.
Yeah, you are choosing to protect your 30-year legacy of quality over a massive quarterly payday. You aren't just selling a powder in a barrel, you are providing a structural, ethical solution for their brand.
Refusing that contract is the ultimate flex of confidence. It proves to the market that you value your integrity over a quick transaction. And ironically, that exact uncompromising stance is what attracts the loyal 30-year customer relationships he talks about.
It really is an incredible full circle moment.
It really is incredible to step back and look at the total arc of this story. From a wild child in the 1970s working construction, to a guy circling classifieds in a Sunday newspaper, to betting his personal condo, to building a vertically integrated powerhouse where employees stay for 3 decades.
It's an amazing journey. And when asked about his ultimate legacy at the end of the broadcast, Jeff's definition of success strips away all the corporate vanity metrics.
Yeah, it isn't about market cap or dominating global supply chains.
No, he says, true success is raising proud children, taking care of his employees' families, and never ever compromising on the quality of the products they put into the world.
He measures his actual wealth in the stability and well-being of the people around him. The business was just the vehicle to achieve that stability.
It's a very grounded perspective.
It forces you to look at your own path, regardless of what industry you're in. If you look at your own daily operations, are you building a network and a reputation that will support you for 30 years? Or are you just chasing the next quick win?
Right. Are you investing in the people around you, allowing them to make mistakes so they can learn? Or are you just using them to hit a quarterly target?
Given the current state of how we work, those are uncomfortable but necessary questions. And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Let's hear it.
We live in an increasingly remote, digital-first business landscape. Algorithms filter our resumes, high-definition screens filter our faces, and chat applications filter our conflicts so we never have to raise our voices. Is the kind of deep, multi-decade loyalty that Jeff built at RFI Loyalty born out of locking people in a room for face-to-face conflict resolution and built over late-night networking at trade shows becoming a lost art?
That's a profound question.
And if that raw, unstructured human element is being safely engineered out of our daily work lives, what will possibly replace it to build the resilient foundations of the future? Remember, the strongest trees do not grow in perfectly climate-controlled greenhouses. They grow deep roots precisely because they have to survive the wind.
A vital reminder the next time you find yourself trying to build a massive structure without testing the soil first.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.